Assembly.
Thank you, Chair. And as I am subbing in today, this may have been covered in a previous meeting, but I just had a question about the student teaching specifically. And does that replace or shorten the internship requirement for licensure? And also, how does that look? If a student wants to become a high school teacher, are they then interning in a high school class with their peers as a senior, or how is that implemented?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. Gia Moore for the record. Through the retention plan that I just outlined, there's multiple opportunities to essentially just get that hands-on learning. That's what our students want, whether it's this program or any other program. So students have had the opportunity, and I want to highlight a couple of schools that have really done a great job with this, which is Rancho High School and East Career and Technical Academy, where they've partnered with their neighboring elementary schools. And those students in the CTE teaching and training pathway are engaging with those schools and providing lessons and support for the students at that neighboring elementary school. So that's part of their experience that they get in part of the program. Once they start to enter into the dual enrollment program with the partnering institution, they're taking the same coursework that any teacher or future educator would be taking as part of that institution. So they would be engaging again in their formal student teaching as part of that dual enrollment program. So I hope I answered your question.
So to clarify then, they would not have to complete a student teaching internship when they want to become a teacher later?
Thank you for the question. Gia Moore again for the record. They will have to complete their student teaching as part of that college program.
Okay, thank you. And then if I may, just one last clarifying question. So I appreciate that they're getting into elementary schools. I think it's important that they're getting some classroom experience. As a high school teacher, I can say I would not do well in an elementary school, and I think my colleague probably can agree. So what about those students that want to teach algebra or government or some other secondary curriculum? They may go into an elementary school and decide, I never want to be a teacher ever. So what are we doing for those kiddos?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. And I share the same sentiments as you. I was certainly a high school person, and that was the route that I wanted to take. Those are just examples that I provided. Students do have an opportunity to engage in the pathway that they are interested in. That's one of the parts of our retention plan that will allow for students to engage in project-based learning. It will allow for them to conduct some action research on that pathway or that particular subject that they're interested in. So those structures and systems are in place, and we'll continue to develop those. I hope that answers your question, but we are exploring internships at multiple levels. For example, in our school that we are developing, I'll give you an example for that. We're trying to develop student majors around our school district needs. So for example, students will be in either an elementary or a secondary education track, and then they will also have the ability to engage in coursework surrounding bilingual education or math and science, depending on what they're interested in. So that's just giving you an idea of the direction that we're going as a district to further develop those program pathways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that answer, and thank you, Chair.
Assemblymember Anderson, did you have a question?
Of course I did. Thank you, Chair. So first of all, I want to say that this presentation has given me so much more confidence than last time. So thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. And I just have two questions. The first was during last month or 6 weeks ago's presentation, there were some comments made by Dr. Pearson that there had been some differences of opinion of how to work with each other between the district and CCEA, Clark County Education Association. I heard you say them at the beginning of the presentation. Has this been over the last 2 or 3 weeks? Has there been a stronger partnership in making sure that this program is a success?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson, for the question. I think I want to start by saying, I think we all want the same things in this room. We all want to grow our teacher pipeline. And so I think we're all making a concerted effort to be able to do that. And all of us are very passionate about that. We have been working with the Clark County Education Association in the implementation of this bill. And they've communicated that there are things that they like that we've done in terms of this pipeline growth, and that there are things that we can improve on. One of those in particular that I spent some time talking about was the marketing. We'll be very honest. I think we overestimated the initial marketing campaign that we had, and there's certainly room for improvement. That's what we're always looking for ultimately. We want the ultimate success in this. We all benefit from it. And so we need to refine that and listen to our stakeholders. And I think that that's what we're doing and moving forward.
Thank you. And so then my second question actually comes from slide 3. The second bullet says to designate a full-time employee responsible for implementing AB 428. Would that be a district employee, or is that a person at every high school? Or is that something that's still in the planning stages as you work with the partnerships, including CCEA? Because I understand what you're saying with sometimes there's different discussions, but I know that that was one part of the bill.
Thank you for the question, Giamore. For the record, we are establishing a site coordinator, which is specifically a curriculum administrator, as well as a counselor over this. The reason for that is that we want to make sure that there's just a concerted effort at each school, and the counselor piece working with the curriculum administrator is key, because when we're having conversations with students about coursework and what their hopes and dreams are and what they would like to do in the future, they're that first person that's working with those students typically. So that's the structure that we will have going into this year 2 of implementation. And we're hoping that that will help us improve on getting the message out on what the benefits of the program are. And that will be at every high school. I didn't mention that before.
Great.
Each high school will have.
Because I know that that's been a large thing. So thank you so much. And thank you, Chair.
Okay, we will come down to Vegas. No questions? Okay, I have a couple. And thank you again for coming back. I guess I'm kind of struggling to see how we're marketing to students with the difference between the CTE teaching and training and this new program that was laid out in AB 428. It almost seems like they're kind of, you could do this or you could do that. And I was just wondering how you're making that your marketing with the differences, because they are different to potential students.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I think that there's 2 pieces to that. One is our strategic work with our school leaders in terms of the pathway options. Ideally, we would like to see our schools in that CTE pathway program. That's our ideal goal. For some of our schools, it is difficult for them to do that, as I mentioned before, with those competing interests. So it's our job to try to build up capacity of knowledge, which is part 2, in that our students need to understand what the benefits of the Teacher Academy Pathway Program are. So I think it's first working with our school leaders to build up that capacity with these pathways and what the right option is. And then making sure that our students know when we're marketing this to build up that momentum. So I think that there's 2 pieces to that we'll continue to work on with our schools.
Okay, and then based on that, how many schools currently in this next school year will be, offering with all elements the TACPP?
Thank you for the question, G. Moore, for the record. So all of our schools offer one of the options that was outlined on slide 3. I'm sorry, slide 4. All of our schools will be offering one of those options. However, there are 34 schools offering the CTE teaching and training pathway program, and that there are 11 schools offering the school implementation options outside of that. So for example, Moapa Valley is one of our pilot schools for the Youth Rebel Start program. So they have about 30 students that are enrolled in that. And then we're getting momentum around that program also at Bonanza and West Prep, which are also included in that 11 schools that are offering the different pathway options. For a rural school, the Youth Rebel Start may be the best pathway for them at this time until they start to build capacity. And what I've seen over the years is, other students our students are our best recruiters for these programs. So as they start to build up that capacity at Moapa, they very well likely, offer that CTE teaching and training pathway. But in the meantime, for those students that are interested and the school may just not have the overall interest, we can't close the doors to them. So this is just one of the examples that I have in terms of what that other pathway would be outside of the CTE one.
And I thank you for that. My one concern, well, I have a few concerns, but one of my concerns is that in the bill, it lays out that any school with over 250 students must offer the TACPP program, as opposed to the CTE teacher training is, I think you have to, by law, have 2 sections with at least 25 students. So the idea was that we're opening it up to a lot more students. And I understand that maybe there might not be, people don't know about it. We talked about the marketing issue. And so, but I think the bill did lay out very clearly the expectations. And I think it's kind of, if you build it, they will come. So while I appreciate that you're kind of doing this and that, I think the intent of the bill is very clear. And I think we are doing a disservice to the folks who, worked on the bill, who really believe in the bill. And quite frankly, the legislature standing behind that bill and funding, giving the money towards that bill to really see the fruits of our labor return in a few years. So I think there's still more work to be done. I just wanted to make sure I got those clarifications, that you're aware of them.
Mhm.
Like I said, I realize that it's a big thing to have you guys, do, but I think it's very, very important. I think our students deserve to have teachers who are full-time and licensed and accredited and want to be there. And I think, as we've learned from other presenters, we have a PR problem with teachers. So we need to start out when they're young and get them involved and say, no, this is a great profession. And you are truly the best of the best. So it looks like Senator Dondero Loop would like to say something.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I guess I have some reflective questions a little bit. Are we starting to spread ourselves too thin? In other words, we've got these 5 programs that you outlined on your PowerPoint. And I see that we're building it as we look at the years. I could see the rise, and now we're at 4,413 students. And how many more can we take? So can we keep, are these 5 programs, that you list enough? Or are we spreading ourselves too thin? Can we consolidate some of those so that, and I don't mean at a school, but I mean, could the Youth Rebel Start Academy, and I'm just using this as an example, so don't anybody get excited, but say if it went away, could something else be in its place from one of these others so that we're concentrating on 3 programs instead of 5? I'm just trying to ask to get an idea of where we're at and where we're going so that we're making best use of your time as well as the students.
Thank you for the question, Senator Dondero Loop. Jean Moore for the record. I think the question, are we spreading ourselves too thin? I would say no. I think that the regulation that we are aligning these programs options with allow for us to reach students that wouldn't have otherwise been able to be part of this program. Just in my experience as an educator, when I was a teacher, I taught juniors. And that is typically the year when things start to click for them. They start to recognize more of their strengths, talents, and abilities. We also have students that have been in other CTE pathways, such as the example that I gave at Rancho High School, where they're like, I don't think I have an interest in that anymore, but I want to be a teacher. I don't want to have barriers for those students to be able to complete that. And I think while we're making a concerted effort to grow this pipeline, I think we also have to recognize that school is also about discovery and exploration and learning about professions and pathways and careers that they may never even knew existed. And so I think that those pathway options allow for us to reach more students, but I don't think it's spreading us thin. I think it's trying to close those barriers.
Thank you very much. That's what I was kind of hoping you would say, because I always think about, I don't know, the student that wants to be the astronaut, and they may never be able to be the astronaut, but they could teach science. They could teach that to students. And I'm also acutely aware, because I was the elementary teacher, and I learned to be a kindergarten teacher. My student teaching was in kindergarten, and my first job was in third grade. And there's a big difference. It's a big difference. So that happens as well. So in the high school venue, it's a little more siloed, because if you're an English teacher, you're an English teacher, so to speak. But if, and Mr. Mansell knows, because he was an elementary principal, he knows what happens there. I mean, you're a deer in a headlight when you get that option, and somebody hires you in a totally different category than you were trained in. But I guess that the other question that I would ask is, are we following these students so that we know that when they go through these programs and they go into UNLV, is there any way for us to know if it took with them, it stayed with them, they did? Because those of us in education know 100% it's not just a job. It's something you really have to want to do. It's a passion. And that makes a big difference than just going to work every day and doing a job that you may or may not, whatever. But when you're with kids, you've got to like what you do, and you've got to love the kids. I don't know if there was a question in there, but I just sort of reflective. I hope that these 4,000 kids that we have here, I hope that eventually we get the 4,000 teachers.
Thank you. And with that, let's sit back and thank you. And we obviously have some more work to do, but I appreciate you working with the folks at CCEA, and we'll get this going. Thank you for being here. Okay, next we'll hear from representatives from our Regional Professional Development Program in Nevada to provide an overview of the work they're doing in our state. And they are in Carson City. So please go ahead when ready. Well, let me make sure that I'll let you know when we can see the PowerPoint presentation, and then feel free to start.
I guess we're waiting. You're at the table. Nevada
All right, you ready to go?
Regional Professional Development Program. I wonder how they're measuring the services coming to the African American community. Let's all listen up, shall we?
A regional professional development program. Today, I am joined in person by my colleague, Ben Dixon, who is the director of the Northwestern RPDP. Unfortunately, our colleagues in the South, Dr. Shelley Smith and Jared Parchison, are moving offices this week in quite intense weather, and they are unable to join us in person. We appreciate the opportunity to share the results and impact of our work with school leaders and educators across Nevada. It is my honor today to present highlights from our 2022-2023 annual reports, which are compiled each year to demonstrate the results that we have achieved through the professional learning that we provide both regionally and statewide, and which we submit to various stakeholders as mandated by the legislature in order to show the return on investment for the funding we are allocated each biennium. We are currently in the middle of compiling the data from 2023 and 2024, and we look forward to submitting our annual reports for this past year to this body in September.
Oh, how exciting.
Before I present our collective highlights, I would like to take a moment to just provide a brief overview of the RPDPs. The RPDPs were established in the 70th legislative session in 1999 with the intention of ensuring that all Nevada educators and leaders have opportunities and access to high-quality professional learning. We are governed by two entities, our regional governing boards and the statewide coordinating council, and we are currently grouped into three regions, which are denoted on the map of the state as you can see on this slide. On this map, you will see districts highlighted in green, which encompass the northeastern region. Those highlighted in red encompass the northwestern region, and those highlighted in blue encompass the southern region. And although we are grouped regionally, we collaborate and coordinate to ensure alignment both across the regions and across the state so that the support we provide to leaders and educators in Nevada's public and charter schools is aligned and coherent. We provide professional learning in three broad categories. Those categories include meeting district and charter school requests for service, fulfilling legislated mandates, and supporting individual teachers and administrators. Within these three broad categories, we determine the professional learning needs of leaders and educators through a request for service model so that the unique needs and context of our districts and our schools is taken into consideration, which in turn will allow us to best leverage our expertise to meet the identified needs. In 2022-2023, we provided 1,690 professional learning sessions. In order to accurately and effectively share results of the professional learning sessions that we provide each year, we sort them into three categories. The first is instructional training, which can include presentations, workshops, in-service, and university courses. An example of this would include a workshop focused on increasing student motivation and engagement. The second category, observation and mentoring, which includes coaching, classroom observations and feedback, modeling, and co-teaching, and an example of which could include new educator mentorship programs or related support to retain those new educators. And then our third category, consulting and collaborating, which can include school and district committee or task force work, email, professional advice, professional conversations and consultations with schools and districts, planning alongside schools and districts for professional learning support. And a specific example could include supporting individual schools with the revised continuous
It
improvement.
could
process.
include, but doesn't necessarily say it
We
is.
currently have 38 full-time RPDP trainers, sometimes referred to as professional learning leaders. So you'll hear those terms interchangeably, and 9 part-time trainers. We offer sessions and workshops in multiple formats, in person at a school, district, or RPDP site, through a hybrid format that blends in-person and online settings, and through a 100% virtual format, all of which allow us to meet the diverse needs of educators and leaders across our state.
Until
and
there's
that's where they
failure.
live. In 2022 and 2023, we served 21,007 educators and 1,723 leaders, again with only 38 full-time and 9 part-time staff. The unique number of educators and leaders on
That's
this
not our
slide
problem that they have
indicates the
so
total number of
few
individuals who participated in professional learning opportunities,
staff.
While the
Good.
duplicated number of educators and leaders that you see on this slide refers to the number of educators and leaders who participated in more than one professional learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Just to put it in perspective, and because we want to celebrate this, in 2022-2023, each RPDP trainer on average provided support for 447 educators and 37 administrators in our state. We are extremely proud of this result and the impact of our work, and alongside our continued investment to improve outcomes in our state. And we share this because we ourselves are former Nevada educators and leaders. We are committed to investing in current and future Nevada educators and leaders. And this is because we know from the research that educators matter more than any other factor in terms of student achievement.
Well, it's not
That
helping that
effective
student
and
achievement for
well-trained
the African
educators
American
are more
children.
likely to send students to college and increase students' future income level,
Mhm.
and that effective school leaders are second only to classroom instruction in terms of impacting student learning. So ultimately, because we know these things, when educators and leaders in our state have opportunities to learn and grow, we believe that it will lead to improved outcomes for Nevada students.
You believe it. It's not working.
In 2022-2023, we received 13,788 evaluation response forms from the professional learning sessions that we designed and facilitated. And we had a response rate of 61%, which is quite fantastic in terms of survey response rates. Participants are asked to rate questions on a Likert scale of 1 to 5, where 1 indicates not at all and 5 indicates to a great extent. The data show overwhelmingly that participants' perception of the impact of professional learning on instructional practice is quite positive, with scores on the 4 included items on this slide averaging 4.7, which suggests that the results of the professional learning they were provided and experienced matched their achieved intended outcome. Internally, we use the feedback from evaluations to also help us to determine the professional learning needs of our staff so that we can grow and improve in how we design and facilitate professional learning moving forward.
This is the
This slide shows
state
a selection of
technical
anecdotal
assistance.
feedback from an open-ended prompt that we include on our evaluation form. These responses also confirm the positive impact and results of the professional learning that we provide. 2 quotes that I would like to specifically highlight include the following. I appreciated that the content was focused and could immediately be applied in the classroom. I have a much deeper understanding of what it takes now to lead a collaborative group.
It's bullshit.
Continue to reflect on my current leadership as well as implement these newly learned strategies.
See, the deal is they're gloating on themselves. And so they're just talking about how successful they were. But guess what? We didn't see it in the data, and we can't measure the benefit for the African American community in this state. So I don't care what they're coming up with. It is unacceptable.
Educational personnel in Nevada in order to renew their initial license. In 2022-2023, the data showed that participants' knowledge and skill for teaching and working with diverse student populations showed a statistically significant increase, and that 97% of our participants indicated at least one change in instructional and or professional practice as a result of their learning from this.
How did that turn out for?
We are extremely pleased with
people
this
that
result, and
forced
we
to
anticipate
participate?
continued impact in current and future courses, as in the past year, we more than doubled the number of participants who completed the courses with us.
Mhm.
Building on the success of multicultural education, the data also showed that participants who completed the family engagement licensure course reported statistically.
Yeah, they have a family
significant
engagement
confidence
licensure course.
communicating
I
effectively
didn't
with
know that.
families and the community in order to support student success, and also revealed positive shifts in their beliefs about the relationship between effective family engagement and student success.
Mhm.
As with the multicultural education course, we more than doubled the number of participants in the past year, and we are anticipating that this trend will continue in the upcoming year.
Mhm.
Another important aspect
don't
of
have
our
no
work
data.
is
See, they
programs that
doubled
we
their
have developed
participant
or
number.
that we
That could
continue
mean
to
2.
develop as needed or
1, 2,
requested
because
based
they
on
didn't come up
legislative
with no data.
requirements, such as those we just highlighted, but also including aspects of our work like financial literacy and computer science modules and computer science training. We would like to highlight that in 2022-2023, the RPDPs were awarded most new K-5 teachers from our external partner code.org, and that came as the result of ongoing partnership between code.org and the RPDP to provide computer science instructional training that aligns with the new state standards for computer science. Additional data collected in the computer science
aligns with the new
training
state
shows those
standards.
participants indicated
Wow.
increased self-efficacy or self-confidence in their teaching, as well as positive impacts on student learning.
Mhm.
The RPDP also provides opportunities for educators and leaders to obtain additional endorsements on their Nevada licenses, including endorsements like the English Language Acquisition and Development, Early Childhood, Computer Science, Reading Specialist, Gifted and Talented Education, and Library or Media Specialist. These programs are offered through a variety of formats, live, hybrid, and virtual, to ensure open access across our state and in partnership with higher education institutions like UNLV and Southern Utah University. Partnering with these institutions of higher education allow our participants to obtain their endorsement credits at a greatly reduced cost through our partnership. Two examples of results obtained through these endorsement programs include a statistically significant increased knowledge of the participants who completed the ELAD program about how second languages are acquired and supported in schooling, as well as long-term learning application for participants who completed the Reading Specialist program with us.
That's insane, because they should be doing this work just because they're a district.
We
in the state.
consistently collaborate and
And now they're
communicate with a variety of stakeholders to ensure the
collaborating with
alignment of our work, as well as to
community partners.
determine the
Everybody
needs of
gotta get
educators
paid.
and leaders across our state. On this slide, you will see examples of stakeholders that we collaborate with on a regular basis. One area of professional learning that continues to be at the forefront of our work as a result of our ongoing collaboration with different stakeholders is our work supporting improved instructional practice through the Nevada Educator Performance Framework, often referred to as the NEPF. We accomplish this through responding to specific requests from our districts and schools, as well as through embedding the NEPF into other professional learning sessions that we design and facilitate. And as you can see on this slide, in 2022-2023, almost 78% of the sessions that we designed and facilitated embedded the NEPF within that in order to show that alignment between what is happening at a state level and a local level. Recognizing that this is a policy-focused group, we would like to suggest a policy consideration for the upcoming 2025 legislative session, wherein new mandates and initiatives, such as those listed on the slide, that include the RPDPs would be connected to increased funding through an overall budget enhancement, which would allow us to both increase and sustain
budget
the
enhancement.
necessary support
They
needed
need
for
more
leaders,
money to do the
educators, and
basic
students to thrive in our
as
state.
trainers. That's insane.
And in conclusion, I would like to provide the contact information for myself and my colleagues so that you can reach out at any time with questions or for additional information about the work and the results that we achieve each year. On behalf of myself and my colleagues, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share these highlights and the results from our work across the state in 2022 and 2023, and to extend our gratitude for your continued support. Thank you.
Because you're a not-for-profit.
And I welcome questions, as does Ben.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Members, do we have questions?
Of course not.
Okay. Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. While this isn't a funding committee, when you talk about enhancing funding to sustain, is the 15 million that we gave in this last biennium not sustainable?
Thank you for the question, Senator Dondero Loop. Annie Hicks for the record. While we are currently, I think, making the most of $15 million, it is about $10 million less than the RPDPs were originally allocated. And one of the struggles that we continue to face is that we operate on a flat budget. So as our fiscal agents, each fiscal agent of the regional groups negotiates raises and salaries and benefits, we have to meet that obligation within our flat budget. And I think essentially what I'm trying to describe is that our $15 million only gets us so far, particularly when we think of this last year, where some of our fiscal agent districts negotiated raises upwards of 18%. Does that answer your question to the degree that you were hoping it would?
Does that
Yes.
answer your
Well,
question?
probably not, but because this isn't a finance committee, I'll stop. I have lots of questions there. Because 15 million, while I appreciate your comments, 15 million was a lot of money. I guess that's the only way I can say it. So along with what you may receive from school districts or other entities. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I know we have a question up north from Assembly Member LaBrue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for presenting on this. I have attended RPDP trainings before, so I know your work. One complaint, not about RPDP, but just about professional development in general that we get from teachers is it doesn't feel relevant, or it feels like it's coming from someone that hasn't been in a classroom for a long time. And so I have kind of a two-part question. The first one, you might not have this data yet, so I'm okay with you sharing it. But do you know how many of your trainers were classroom teachers in the first place? And how many of them were in the classroom within the last 5 years?
Oh, excellent question. Thank you for that. Annie Hicks for the record. I'll start and then I'll allow Ben to add on, of course, if he can do so. First of all, by law, anyone hired with the RPDP must have been a classroom educator in Nevada for more than 5 years. And so all of our staff are highly qualified, licensed, and currently licensed educators, often who have very advanced degrees and continue to teach in a variety of other places, such as higher education institutions, and are involved at national levels. So while not directly in a classroom, I think very well versed with a lot of experience and expertise. That said, your question about in the last 5 years, I can speak specifically for my staff. Half of the staff I have currently were in the classroom within the last 5 years, and I anticipate coming retirements, which is wonderful. And so I sense that number will grow, wherein I probably would have 75% of my staff who were in the classroom in the last 5 years.
Ben Dixon, for the record, Director of Northwest Regional Professional Development Program. I echo what Director Hicks said as far as my staff's training. I currently have, of my 16 staff members, 3 of which were in the classroom within the last 5 years. One thing we also do, because I think your question, Assemblyman, is very relevant, we partner with teachers currently in the classroom as much as we can, either to provide content, to teach classes, or if we go into specific schools, we will partner with someone in that school, because we all know having that person in the school that you can go to when, after a training and you have a question and the RPDP has left, we want to make sure that person is there. So we do try to do that.
Thank you so much. I think that really does get to the heart of it. And Chair, if I may, just a brief follow-up is what procedures do you have in place for those teachers that maybe are more than 5 years out of the classroom to make sure they are still getting that regular classroom experience, so that they are staying relevant and cutting edge and able to give good advice and training to our teachers?
Annie Hicks for the record. I'll start, and then of course, please Ben add on. In our group, most of my staff have their national board certification. And as a part of that, as you know, to renew, they have to be in a classroom context and teaching and working with students directly. And so we work within our region to find those partnerships with schools that will allow my staff to come and do that work. So in a way, that is one approach that we take to try to remain current in what it's like to teach in a current classroom, because it does change a lot from year to year. And I think particularly the pandemic highlighted substantial changes in the educational experience, both of our teachers and our students. And so that's one aspect. The other thing that's not directly related to being within a classroom context, but that I think is really important in our work, is that we are well versed and have deep knowledge of what's happening both in our local level, state, but also at a national level. So all of my staff are members of national groups, and they often are called upon to present, to write and submit papers. I had one staff member recently publish a book. And so part of it is maintaining a level of expertise that would be necessary to respond to situations where you're going in and you have 30 educators, all with very different needs. That takes a lot of skill and knowledge to be able to navigate that deftly, and certainly not easily and not perfectly, but I think that's one thing we strive to do. So it's kind of a two-prong approach in our region.
Ben Dixon for the record. I would also echo Director Hicks' comments. I have a high number of staff that are nationally board certified. Multiple members of my staff have presented nationally, published articles. The other thing that we do engage in across the RPDBs is our own professional development. So I will give an example for this year. We understand the coming questions and concerns and around AI. So we took it on ourselves as a department in my region to all go through an AI training module as a professional development through a nationally publisher. And we kind of worked through that, what that would look like, and then how we could implement AI in our roles. And I'm very excited coming out next year. I have a number of staff that are doing some AI inquiry projects with a number of teachers, and we're looking forward to offering some courses around that. So that is one way that we do it.
I don't care what you're doing, you're not passing it on to the children.
So
That's real.
answers your question.
It does.
Not
Thank you
even
both
the
so much.
people here are upward of where they should be.
Thank you for the presentation. And with that, I think we will move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item 10. We will hear a report from the Nevada State Treasurer and Education's for Professional Recruitment and Retention Advisory Task Force. The task force has been meeting over the last several months to consider recruitment and retention in our state. We'll be hearing their recommendations based on their finding. To present, we'll have Kathleen Gallen-Collins and Kelly Lynn Charles with NDE.
And they're not
as
coming
well as
up with
Carrie
highly
Finn with the
qualified.
task force.
So let's
I
just
believe
understand what
we're
they're saying
in-
is we have
or
people who are not credentialed
online
working with
and
our children.
here in Las Vegas and also Carson City. We're hitting them all.
Yeah, hit them all.
Go ahead, when ready. Do you have a PowerPoint? So hold that until we can see that PowerPoint. And then I will let you know to begin.
Kathleen Gallen-Collins to record. Yes, please let me know when you see that PowerPoint. We have a couple colleagues. Our chair of the task force is actually in Denver.
You're
So
good to
at a conference, so she's presenting from there. And then our vice chair is in Carson City.
You are good to go now.
Okay, and if Sherry is online.
Sherry Spencer for the record. Good afternoon, Chair Bill Bray, Axelrod, and honorable members of the interim Legislative Committee on Education. I am Dr. Sherry Spencer, Chair of the Nevada State Teacher and Education Support Professional Recruitment and Retention Advisory Task Force. I teach at C.O. Bastion High School in Lincoln County. I facilitate a credit recovery program to help students graduate.
And I'm Carrie Finn, Vice Chair of the Task Force. I'm a clinical aide with an EMT license serving in the Carson City School District at Pioneer High School.
Dr. Spencer for the record. The task force is supported by the Nevada Department of Education. With us today are Kelly Lynn Charles, an education programs professional in the Office of Educator Development, Licensure, and Family Engagement, along with Kathleen Gallen-Collins, the Assistant Director of that office. The task force members are honored to have been provided the opportunity to engage in this work and to share our findings and recommendations. Today we'll be sharing a presentation that provides an overview of the recommendations developed since our last report in 2023. Please note that we will be using the term educator throughout the presentation. We are referring to anyone who provides direct or indirect instruction or supports students access to instruction. This includes both licensed and unlicensed
But
personnel,
highly
such as
qualified is what you're supposed to have when you're working with children with Title I.
school nurses and counselors, to name a few.
Yeah, you're just trying to make your numbers go up.
The task force was created in 2019 with the intent of providing a way for teachers to directly voice concerns to legislators and to be part of the solution. The task force consists of 20 members and now has a mix of teachers and education support professionals since the passage of Bill 71 during the 2023 legislative session. Each member must have at least 5 years' experience in Nevada and be currently serving in their role. The primary duties of the task force are to identify the challenges in attracting and retaining educators in Nevada and make recommendations to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Educations to address these challenges. Over the past year and a half, the task force has continued to work closely with a variety of education stakeholders and the NDE to create the report you have in your meeting materials. Personnel from West Ed has continued to help provide data and research, and we rely on partners listed on the slide to provide task force with ideas for recommendation. The report contains the details and data on each recommendation. We will be referring to that report throughout the presentation. The recommendation is a process, something that we do over a course of a year or two. We start with looking at the available data and research. Then we collaborate with others to brainstorm possible solutions. The task force then reviews the research and creates recommendations to be shared with the Committee on Education. Please note, evidence folders containing the research and data are included in the report and can be accessed via links. We welcome our new support professionals in the task force in March and are looking forward to adding recommendations specific to their needs to the report that we submit in February. This slide shows a condensed version of the report's table of contents. We organize the report to help readers easily navigate the information. A simple list of the recommendation is in alphabetical order by focus area on page 6. Each recommendation title is linked internally to the full recommendation and supporting details. The 29 task force recommendations are grouped into 5 essential focus areas using a holistic system-centered approach to creating solutions. The first is systemic support and infrastructure to improve working conditions. Recommendations to improve working conditions, climate and culture to improve retention and recruitment. Improvement. Recommendations to positively impact recruitment efforts and grow the profession. Retention. Recommendations to positively impact retention. Removing barriers. Recommendations to remove the barriers to entering the education profession, and then Joint Interim Standing Committee on Education's letters of support. These recommendations request COE write letters to the appropriate agencies, urging them to take action to improve educator recruitment and retention, as they may not be in COE's direct control, but COE may be able to influence the appropriate agency to take action.
Carrie Finn for the record. The task force work must be infused into other statewide initiatives while supporting other educational efforts. Members felt deeply that no one solution could fix the current struggle and that recruitment and retention efforts must approach challenges from multiple angles and address multiple levels of the education system. As an example, if Nevada revises our state retirement benefits to support recruitment and retention efforts without also improving working conditions, educators may still leave. For the first time ever, the recommendations in each focus area have been prioritized by the task force. These are identified as priority recommendations, of which there are 21. The other recommendations in the same category are in alphabetical order. There are a total of 13 recommendations that have been previously stated in other reports, with 16 new recommendations for a total of 29 and 5 focus areas. The groups that propose the same or similar solutions are listed in the report. Each recommendation is organized in the same way. First, we identify the focus area for the grouping of recommendations. Then comes the title of the recommendation. If the title doesn't give you enough information, we have included details in the specifics section below the title. The rationale explains why we are making the recommendation. If you are unsure how the recommendation may resolve an issue, the expected outcomes will explain that. We also include the other stakeholder groups making this recommendation and how it aligns to the governor's plan. We didn't forget the research. Each recommendation is linked to a Google folder filled with research behind our recommendation. The first focus area is systemic support and infrastructure to improve working conditions. The task force recognizes that without proper structures in place, recruitment and retention efforts may not see the intended results. Thus, this task force has put forth a large number of recommendations to address the infrastructure and systems of support to improve the working conditions of educators across the state. These recommendations take a multi-pronged approach, addressing the perception of education, data collection, and educator benefits packages. Over the next 3 slides, the task force proposes 13 holistic, system-centered recommendations to improve working conditions, climate, and culture to improve retention and recruitment. Recommendations 1 through 5 are prioritized, with number 1 indicating the highest priority recommendation. Recommendations 6 through 13 are listed in alphabetical order. Recommendations 6 through 9 are not prioritized, but are still important to the task force. These include allocating funding for quality mentor programs with salaries and stipends for mentor educators, along with supply cards for classroom supplies, shortening the turnaround time it takes for retired educators to become eligible to return to employment, and asking the State Board of Education to reevaluate high school graduation requirements, to remove duplicate coursework, and to ensure alignment with Nevada's system of higher education expectations. The last 4 recommendations in this focus area are to conduct a study of the Nevada system of higher education's educator preparation coursework to ensure alignment with what educators need to know and be able to do. Require health plans doing business in Nevada to include extensive wraparound service benefits. Take action to prevent schools from creating schedules that require 1 teacher to 2 different content classes in the same room at the same time. And asking the legislature to invest in sustaining the educator workforce supply and demand portal that is currently being developed using federal relief funds. The task force proposes 2 recommendations to positively impact recruitment efforts and grow the profession. Recommendations 1 through 2 are prioritized, with number 1 indicating the highest priority recommendation. It is essential for Nevada to invest in initiatives that make the state more appealing to out-of-state educators. This can include offering competitive salaries and benefits, as well as providing support for relocation and housing. Additionally, efforts should be made to encourage current Nevada residents to pursue a career in education. This can be done through targeted outreach and recruitment efforts, as well as providing financial incentives and support for individuals interested in becoming educators.
For Sherry Spencer for the record. It is vital for Nevada to prioritize the retention of its educators. This can be achieved by offering a variety of benefits and resources, such as mentorship programs, professional development opportunities, and cultural competency training. It is also imperative to remove any barriers that may prevent current educators from staying in education. After all, retention is recruiting educators to stay. On slides 14 and 15, the task force proposes 7 holistic system center recommendations to positively impact educator retention. Recommendations 1 through 7 are prioritized, with number 1 indicating the highest priority. These recommendations are designed to help address shortages and retention by paying for current educators to become endorsed in critical shortage areas, providing funding for supporting for teachers' home ownership and student loan forgiveness, and dedicated funds for meaningful longevity pay. The task force proposes the following 3 recommendations to remove barriers to entering education. Recommendations 1 through 3 are prioritized, with number 1 indicating the highest priority recommendation. Recommendations 1 through 4 are prioritized with number 1 indicating the highest priority. These recommendations request COE write letters to the appropriate agency urging them to take action to improve educator recruitment and retention, as they may not be in COE's direct control, but COE may be able to influence the appropriate agencies to take action. In conclusion, a simple solution will not solve the educator workforce shortages. Only a holistic, forward-thinking, system-centered approach will be able to truly affect working conditions in a way that positively impact educator recruitment and retention. We are looking forward to hearing your feedback on the 24 report and will be providing an updated report to the Legislative Council Bureau in February 2025. We thank you once again for allowing us to present and welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you for that presentation. Senators, any questions? Okay, we'll go to Carson City. Do you have any questions at Carson City?
Sure. Of course I do. So first of all, thank you for presenting this information. I greatly appreciate all of the items. I seem to see, though, a large amount that has to do with funding. And since this is a policy thing, I'm wondering if there's anything that can in fact be done around policy, in particular for our support professionals. So I really appreciate the fact that we've got that when I'm looking over the recommendations in particular. The largest one I see is number 8 under the systematic support and infrastructure to improve working conditions. And that has to do with the timeline for educators to become eligible to return to employment. Is that a policy language change that we would need to do? Or is that something, and I'll understand if this is a little bit too technical, or is that something that has to be done at each district's different levels at this time?
Dr. Spencer, for the record, that's a policy thing, because that comes from how long it takes at the PERS office. I was trying to think of the word, but that's a PERS thing, because you know how long it takes for all of that to happen? That's why it's like a 6 month, well, no, it's not 6, is it? Yeah, your first paycheck, so after you retire, so it takes a while. That's what that problem is.
And thank you for that clarification. Is that for only licensed, or is that also for some of our support professionals who are, oh wait, they don't always get the exact same PERS at this time, but is that only for licensed, or is it for our support professionals as well? Do either of you know that?
Dr. Spencer, for the record, that's just for licensures, teachers. The other ones, that doesn't include them.
And
Carrie.
if I may add to that, Kathleen Gallon Collins to the record. So what happens is if a position gets on the critical shortage list with PERS, then that position can become eligible to what we in layperson's terms call double dip. So if I retire from teaching elementary is listed as critical shortage area. I retire in June. I have a certain waiting period if I want to come back and work for a district. So usually those classrooms have to start with a substitute teacher for the first part of the year. And so the task force wanted to see if they could shorten that timeline somehow so that that teacher could start the school year with those students, and those students would have a licensed certified teacher in that classroom.
Harry Finn for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson, for asking. Yeah, currently at this time, the support professionals are not included in this. Hopefully, now that education support professionals have been added to this task force, we will move in that direction to get things flowing, because I have a lot to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then my second question comes from the language that has to do with the recruitment and the 2 prioritized recruitment found on slide 13. And that has to do with returning the public employees retirement system service requirement from the current 33.3 to 30 years of service. Is that again a public employee or PERS decision, or is that something that is done legislatively? If you could clarify that for whichever of the three of you would like to clarify that a little bit.
Dr. Spencer, for the record, that is again a policy through PERS. They changed it in 2015, I think, to that. So that would have to go back through legislation and then be changed again.
This is Chair Bill Brax. I'm actually gonna have our legal counsel just clarify something.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Asher Killian, Legislative Counsel. Just to follow up on the conversation about the waiting period after retirement before coming back to service, there are requirements under federal law for how long you have to be separated from service for it to be a bona fide separation for retirement purposes before PERS would be able to start paying. And I believe that's where that period comes from. Unfortunately, we had PERS here earlier, or else I would phone a friend for this part, but there is a minimum length of time there that's required under federal law. So that may require more input from PERS on exactly how short that's allowed to be.
Thank you. It sounds like we have a question from Assemblymember Lou Patch as well.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the clear levels of work that went into a lot of this with all of the research and everything that backs it up. I echo my colleagues' sentiments that a lot of this does have to do with funding, and we as educators know a lot of it is chronic underfunding. One thing that I see is missing from here, and I'd love to get your viewpoint on, is we heard all day long about the time load that is put onto educators and the bureaucracy and the paperwork and the assessments and everything else. And I don't see any recommendations really on reducing that. And so I just wondered if that was a discussion that you had within your committee and if that's something we can find somewhere within your report.
This is Kelly Lynn Charles for the record. Thank you for the question. If we go back a few years on the previous report, we did have recommendations to reduce educator workload. And I believe the Senate Bill 72 to do the study about the educator workload that was presented on earlier did come out of that. So this task force was withholding a recommendation until some of that information came back so that they had the data and what educators felt before they made a recommendation to then start removing things.
So to clarify, it has not been fixed, but your recommendation is forthcoming.
What did you?
Correct.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I guess that would be Assemblyman Koenig. Any questions? All right, we will move on. Thank you very much for being here. Now we will go to our second to last agenda item of the day. We will hear from the subcommittee task force exploring instructions related to the Holocaust and other genocides. The subcommittee will present its finding and any recommendation to present. We have the trooper Elliot Malin, who was one of the first people here in the morning, and you're still here, and thank you for that. And please go ahead when ready. Well, once you get your PowerPoint up, and thank you again for being here.
Okay, we're gonna stop from right now. Because they're just trying to figure it out. But when they're not figuring out what's happening to the African-American students, it is a problem because we are at the bottom and we're not going to stay on the bottom anymore. This is 2024. Did you not hear me? Somebody's knocking, but somebody's ringing the bell. So,
Good afternoon, Chair